Hey, Chris, did you hear what Jim Harbaugh said?
No, what?
He was quoted as saying he has full faith in his coaches. And like Moses, he's going to lean on his staff.
It's interesting because I'm impressed by Moses in the way he parted the Red Sea. I'm even more impressed by J.K. Dobbins the way he's parting defenders.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Smash Pod, brought to you by SmashUp Fantasy Sports, the only next-gen fantasy sports game where you can choose your players, choose your Smash cards, dominate your opponents. I'm your host, Chef. Hope everyone's doing well. Like always, I'm with my co-host, Hawk. What's up, Hawk? How's it going? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's a beautiful night in Hawaii, beautiful night in paradise. Fantasy teams are winning. Week is going well. I'm doing much better than last week.
Yeah, man. Hopefully you got a couple wins under your belt. I got a couple this week, couple big losses, couple injuries. I mean, I know it's going across the board to everyone, but it hurts, man, when you have that team that just has like 5 of your top 7 picks just hurt and out for weeks on end. But yeah, there's some positivity with some of the teams that are doing well, so I'll have to lean on them.
Well, that's why I got to come talk to you about it because there's nothing else in the world like this, right? Like nowhere else in the world would someone be like, "Yeah, I was watching the Kardashians, but 5 of the 7 of them are hurt right now. They're 5 of them are injured. Like the show's going off the rails. Like only 2 are healthy." It's like unique to fantasy sports.
Yeah, I was watching Selling Sunset and one of the real estate brokers tore her ACL. I'm just so pissed.
Well, apparently I was wrong. Apparently this does happen in other.
I'm just kidding. That did not happen. But we've got a fun episode today. We're going to do a little Smash Start Sit. And Smash Start Sit for us is going to be like the game that people play that goes by the words Marry F Kill. But this is going to be the Smash Up version. So Smash is going to be who are our Smash plays this week? Who would we actually play a Smash card on because we really, really love the matchup. We love the player. Start is going to be we feel comfortable with them playing. We put them in our Smash Up lineups. We like the matchups. We just don't know if we want to spend the budget from a card perspective on them. And then Sit, needs no explanation. We just don't like the matchup in comparison or just not at all. And we're going to sit them. So you ready to play a little Smash Start Sit?
Yeah, I just don't know why you added out the word friend, right? It's marry, friend, kill. Isn't that the...
Yeah. Friend you, bro. Friend you.
Good friend.
All right. We're gonna dice this up into a couple of different categories because we want to make this a little bit tough on ourselves. So the first one is going to be elite quarterbacks or like anchor QBs, some really, really strong ones. So let's start with Smash Start Sit between Pat Mahomes versus the Falcons, Josh Allen versus the Jaguars, and CJ Stroud versus the Minnesota Vikings. So let's start with you, Hawk. Smash Start Sit.
I'll tell you all 3, and then we can talk just a little bit about it, which is I am smashing Josh Allen. I am starting Pat Mahomes, and look, all elite quarterbacks, so nothing personal to him, but I'm sitting CJ Stroud.
Okay. Can I tell you mine, and then we can talk about it? Because I think we are a little bit off. We're a little bit aligned. We're a little off. So I'm actually smashing Pat Mahomes, and so I know you're starting him. I'm smashing Mahomes. I'm starting Josh Allen. I think we agree. We're sitting Stroud versus the Vikings. I think Stroud probably has, of those 3, the weakest game. The Vikings probably pose the biggest opposition from a defensive perspective. But let's talk about Mahomes and Allen. We have them swapped. Why are you smashing Allen, and why are you starting Mahomes?
Yeah, first of all, friend you for disagreeing with me. But
yeah, with the friend.
In my case, I feel like the Bills have had a little bit of weird luck so far. Weird week 1, weird game script in week 2. Obviously, Cook long touchdown run, defensive touchdown. I think this is the week. The Jaguars have a really weak pass defense. I think they're something like number 27 in the league. Feels like this is a team they can throw on. Obviously, some risk. Look, Cook could run crazy again. But I think this is the week they get on track. And at the start of last week, Kincaid was catching the ball. Shakir started off nicely. So I actually think this is a week, not only am I smashing Josh Allen, would be very comfortable starting Kincaid and Shakir, either in my smash-up lineup or in a fancy lineup.
Okay. Let me sell you on mine, right? Okay. I'll start with Allen because I'm starting him. I think he's a good start. I think Allen's always a good start, right? But I think the Bills are going more run heavy. I think they showed that at the end of last season, last game even. They went heavy with James Cook. You saw Josh Allen's line. It was very mediocre from a Josh Allen perspective. So from that regard, I think that Buffalo offense is going to be a little more democratic. You're not going to see everything on Josh Allen's shoulders every game like we have in the past. I really think they're going to really just actually feature James Cook a bit more. And I really like Mahomes in this spot too. So Mahomes, he's going up against the Falcons. They give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks in comparison to the Jaguars. We just found out the news about Pacheco. He's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. They wanted to lean on the run game. That's not possible anymore. They have a poo-poo platter of running backs. They're not going to lean on Steele or Pirine or I don't know who else. They just signed Kareem Hunt off the street. So this is going to be a Mahomes spot. He's going to be controlling the offense and probably has to do so for the next 6 to 8 weeks, really. And I really feel like they're going to be passing heavy in neutral game scripts. I can really see them passing 65, 70% of the time going forward. And if we're talking about smashing, I think we should also talk about what smash card we would play on them. So for Mahomes, I would play Mr. Relevant. That smash card is going to give you points. The quarterback throws for more than 250 yards passing and runs for more than 20. He's averaged more than 24 yards rushing per game over his career. Last year was 24. And even last year at his down year, he was averaging 261 yards a game. So I think he hits 250 plus 20. You get those bonus points. And even Atlanta has given up 142 yards rushing to quarterbacks this year so far.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I think you'll have a good game. I think Atlanta also keeps the ball on the ground a lot. This could just be a slower pace, slower game script.
Yeah.
I'm going to feel comfortable starting either one. I will smash with Allen. And so for smash card, I'm going to play one that's an allusion maybe to the player you mentioned. This one's from where you basically get a point for every completion. You lose half a point for every incomplete. But if you're going to complete a lot of passes, that card's going to net you a lot of points. And so when I look at this game, I think the Jaguars got tissue paper defense. So I think Allen's going to have a high completion percentage. And I think he's just going to rack up the points for that card.
Okay. Yeah. Solid starts either way. So if you're building your smash up lineups, I think going with Mahomes or Josh Allen is definitely a way to start building around your team. So let's move on to our next smash start sit combination. So this next lineup of players is going to be surprising running backs. So we got J.K. Dobbins, one of the surprises of the season so far. He's been shredding defenses. So we have J.K. Dobbins versus the Steelers. Jordan Mason, everyone's favorite handcuff and fill-in for CMC so far, versus the Rams. Been absolutely crushing it and looks amazing. And Brian Robinson, just stating the case for being like a RB1/RB2 versus the Swiss cheese run defense of the Bengals thus far. So that's a great matchup as well. So all of those players and matchups in combination could be enticing. What's your smash start sit combo?
So in this case, I'm smashing Jordan Mason. And I think it's kind of interesting because, if you look at stuff like Player Profiler, his advanced metrics are actually not that impressive. The situation reminds me in the preseason, we talked about Kyron Williams last year, middling advanced metrics, but opportunity was there. And I think Jordan Mason see the same thing. Number 4 in snap count, number 1 in carries, number 1 in red zone carries. I think the Niners will shred the Rams defense. I think there'll be a lot of red zone opportunities. Love Mason there. And in fact, while I'm playing Mason, I'm going to put Bruising Bell Cow on him for a smash card because I think he's locked for 20 plus carries. So you're just going to lock in those points. On the other hand, I'm going to start Dobbins, who, we keep mentioning his names. I got to say at least once. I can't hear that without thinking of Harry Potter and some kind of Dobbins, Harbaugh. Dobbins, Harvey. But look, he's great, right? 9.9 yards per carry, good, strong advanced metric. I mean, really elite talent and better running back than Jordan Mason. But tougher matchup, and for some reason, Harbaugh's still splitting carries evenly with Gus Edwards, maybe to keep him healthy because of his injury issues. So if the numbers come down a bit, if it's a tougher matchup against the Steelers, who have a pretty decent run defense, just a little bit more risk, a little less likely to get in the end zone.
Then why are you starting him? Why wouldn't you pass on him and start Brian Robinson? But I didn't give mine yet, but I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
I see where this is going. So obviously I'm sitting Robinson. I love him. Good running back. A little more risk for the situation, but why don't I hold that thought? Because I think you've got some strong opinions. I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, I think we both aligned. I don't have to go over it again. We're both going to smash Mason. I mean, the Rams are in trouble this weekend, and the Niners are going to run all over them. They're going to go run.
You mean the Lambs?
Sure. The Lambs for sure. Here in LA, the Lambs are. I mean, their season is done pretty much. But anyways, smashing Mason. I know you mentioned a smash card. I would love to play Freight Train on him. 30 points for a 30-plus yard run. I think Mason's going to have a ton of opportunities. There's going to be a lot of open lanes. And if he just finds a little crease, I think he can break one. I mean, he almost had a couple of big ones versus the Jets. So love Mason. We both want to smash Mason. I'm going to start Brian Robinson. And here's why. It's because he's playing against the Bengals. And we talked about it. Their defense, from a run perspective, is Swiss cheese. They cannot stop the run. They've given up the 7th most yards to running backs thus far this season. And who knows? The Cincinnati Bengals could be still winning, but their defense from a run perspective is just terrible. If this game goes in a negative game script per se, that could be more Austin Eckler, but they've also given up the 6th lowest receiving yards to running backs. So I just feel like that this is a Brian Robinson game for the Washington Commanders, and I just really don't trust that Cincinnati run D. So that obviously means Dobbins, who I do like. Obviously, he's been crushing it, but that means Dobbins is a sit for me. And I'll just throw out this little nugget. The Steelers have allowed the 7th lowest points allowed to running backs, 7th fewest yards, no rushing touchdowns thus far.
Well, I think a great point you bring up is, look, I just mentioned with Pat Mahomes that the Falcons like to keep the ball on the ground. They're running a lot against the Eagles. It could just be a slower game with fewer possessions, fewer passes. That's the Steelers game script too, right? That's how they run with Warren and Harris. And even Fields. I think you mentioned that, like 14 quarterback smashes in the first games. It's a good point. I mean, I think bit of a coin flip. Dobbins is the better talent, but I think you bring up a great point about the situation.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting just in general because Dobbins, and we'll talk about this later, Dobbins has been a very, very popular play on SmashUp this far. He's been a good value, been crushing it. I wonder how many people are going to play him this week when they're going up against actually a pretty tough run D in the Steelers. So we'll get to that in a little while. But it looks like we disagree slightly again. So we'll see how the next one bears out. The next combination we have are on disappointing wide receivers. And this one was tough for you and I to kind of play out here, Hawk, because they're just trash all around. And we couldn't find any of them that like bubbled or elevated themselves versus each other.
And these are guys we like. It's so funny. We spent all draft season talking about them. And it's a little bit like, if you've got a friend or a relative or something you just see like throwing their life away. They're doing drugs. They're doing terrible things.
Damn, I don't know if any of these guys are doing drugs yet.
You want them to pull through. You really want to see them be successful, but at a certain point, you realize like you can't save everyone. You're like, you've got to help yourself. So why don't you tell?
Okay, well, let's talk about these junkies that we're referring to, according to you. All right, so the 3 disappointing wide receivers thus far: Amari Cooper versus the Giants, Drake London versus the Chiefs, or George Pickens versus the Chargers. So who are you smashing, starting, and sitting? This is a nasty one, to be honest.
Look, this is a real situation. We're talking about SmashUp, right? So there's a very real situation. You're like, okay, why am I deciding this? Well, I might be deciding this because I spent money on Josh Allen, right? I spent money on Jordan Mason or Dobbins. So now I've got to go a little bit more value to fit this into the cap. So
good point. Yep.
A value pick here. I'm going to begrudgingly smash London. Don't love him. I'm going to start Cooper. And I'm gonna sit that junkie meth head George Pickens. That's an official nickname from now on.
Pickens. Okay. I'm also going to begrudgingly smash Drake London, and I have Drake London on some redraft teams and don't like it. And it looks like we slightly disagree again. So I'm going to start Junkie Pickens, as you call him, and I'm going to sit the Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper combination. That's just nasty to me. So we disagree. So hop into your rationale. Let me know why you're going with Cooper as a start versus Pickens.
That's it, right? Cooper ain't a complete junkie. He's just holding for a friend. It's Deshaun Watson who's the real meth.
If you're holding the bag when the cops arrive, it don't matter who was doing it. You got caught, buddy.
Well, so look, Cooper. Here's the thing. He's getting volume, and at the end of the day, that's a big thing in fantasy. And another week or two from now, it won't matter. Like if you're getting volume and it's bad volume at a certain point, it doesn't matter. We saw the connection that Watson and Cooper had last year. Watson could be washed. They are playing the Giants, who do not have a good secondary. This is kind of a make it or break it week, right? I'm towards my wits' end with Cooper as much as I came into the season pounding the table for him. Between that and Pickens, and he'll give the opposite rationale in a moment, who he's just not gotten volume. Fields has thrown 20 and 23 passes the last 2 games. I know you'll talk a little about penalties, so I'll defer that for now. The volume just isn't there, and I don't think it's a fluke. The games have been close. They've been game scripts where they should be continuing to run their normal offense, but it's Arthur Smith. We saw it in Atlanta. He's doing it again in Pittsburgh. Run, 4th down, run again, punt the ball, then run it again. I'm just concerned. And going up against a halfway decent defense here with the Chargers, who have a good pass defense, I just don't love the situation.
Yeah. And for the record, I think these are 2 pretty bad choices, and I think we did that intentionally, right? To see like how we could sort that out. So, okay. obviously I said I'm going with Pickens as my start over Cooper. So with Cooper, he's getting volume. Yes, that is true. However, I think you've got to peel the onion a little bit. The volume is there, but you've also got to look at catchable rate, right? Are the balls that he's receiving, are they catchable? Deshaun Watson is throwing one of the highest uncatchable ball rates in the league. He's giving volume to Cooper, but they're falling at his fucking feet. They're 3 yards away from his hands. Those are targets, but if he can't even get to them, it doesn't matter. So if he's catching 2 of 11 balls for 16 yards, like, sorry, that's not going to do anything. Like, yeah, he had a connection with Watson last year, but that was last year. Watson had all offseason to go to 92 more massage parlors and just get worse at his game. So he just looks really bad. Cooper might be exactly the same. And Cooper's he's not a spring chicken either. So maybe he declined a little bit. Who knows? With Pickens, yeah, he didn't have volume last game. Even if you take away some of those plays that he had penalties on, or team penalties and things like that took away potential touchdowns, he was shadowed by Surtain. Surtain is shutting down everyone. Surtain shut down DK Metcalf the game before. Then once Metcalf moved on, he dropped like 125 yards and a touchdown. So anyone plays against Pat Surtain, I'm giving them a mulligan. Like, I'm actually going to not play them that game. But Pickens had volume the game before. His first game, he had 6 catches out of 7 targets for 85 yards. Pickens has already shown me he can do it within those 2 games with Justin Fields. Cooper has not. So to me, that kind of tips the scales. But like we said, 2 really just like shitty options. So I wouldn't want to be forced to pick between them, but if I did have to, I would pick Pickens.
Which of your junkie friends are you taking to testify for you in court this week? It's a big call. Will they show up?
No one associated with Deshaun Watson in court, that's for sure.
Deshaun's not testifying in court. Well, actually, maybe testifying in court, but not on my behalf, I hope.
Yeah. On that note, though, I don't think we said, what smash card would you play on Drake London? I think we both said we would smash London in this case, but what smash card would you play?
I'm doing not so wide receiver, which is a card where you double receiving yards. Only if they don't score a touchdown. If they score a touchdown, the card is worth 0. Pretty cheap smash card, won't cost me a lot. I think Drake, they're going to fall behind to the Chiefs. They'll probably be throwing the ball a lot once they do. So there's a chance that he gets a lot of yards just if the Chiefs start playing a soft D. But I don't think he gets into the end zone.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a possibility there. London is not like a huge touchdown threat from game to game anyway, so that card could actually bear out some points.
Or a huge yardage threat, or a huge receptions threat, or a huge target. So it's
okay. Well, that's actually funny you bring that up, because the smash card that I would play on London this week is actually Tunnel Vision of Love, which gives you 3 points per target. And look, they're playing the Chiefs. This could be a game that the Chiefs use to get right a bit. And I know they're 2-0, but they haven't really looked like world beaters yet through both of their games. They could end up pulling out in front of Atlanta, and Atlanta has to go to a negative game script, and they're trying to catch up, and they're throwing the ball around. And that's where getting targets comes into play, and you get 3 points per target. If London gets 10 targets, that's 3 points per target. That's 30 points. So even though it's an expensive card, $7,500 of your budget, 30 points if you hit 10 targets, which is not crazy. If you're in a negative game script and you got to start passing the ball around to try to make up for points quickly, like, I could see that potentially happen.
And to astute listeners, you've heard this is actually the real solution. Play Cooper and just play Tunnel Vision of Love. So it doesn't matter if Deshaun Watson throws the ball 10 yards in front of him or way over his head. That is 3 points to the bank.
If you end up playing Cooper, yeah, that's something where you could maybe smash on him. You could smash Tunnel Vision of Love. It's not a bad play. All right, let's go to our last one. And we've done quarterback, running back, wide receiver. So we'll wrap up on tight end. And pretty much these tight ends are the top 3 out of a really, really bad crop of tight ends this year, which is kind of crazy because coming in, this is a season where a lot of people thought there was actually some good depth at tight end, but through 2 games have not seen that bear out. So the 3 tight ends that we're going to smash, start, or sit are George Kittle versus the Rams, Trey McBride versus the Lions, or Brock Bowers versus the Carolina Panthers in a juicy matchup there. So who are you smashing, starting, or sitting?
So I'm smashing my boy Skittles, as I call him, because he drops all those juicy goodness over you.
Okay.
I am starting Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sit always a McBride's maid, never a McBride.
Okay. My smash, start, sit is finally exactly the same as yours. So I think we agree. So smashing Kittles, starting Bowers, sitting McBride. Why don't you kick us off on Kittles?
Here's the thing. I think the Niners are going to beat the Rams pretty heavily. I think, as you would say, it's a get-right game. And a lot of that might actually benefit Mason, but they're still going to throw the ball. Kittles has already been averaging 6.5 targets a game. Obviously, there's been no CMC. Now there's no Deebo Samuels. So more of that volume's going to go to Kittle's. And so I'm going with him. And for my smash card, I'm going with the card Antihero, which is an allusion to another tight end. You can probably guess. But with this card, you've got to plan a tight end, but every touchdown's multiplied by 3. And I think he's a huge red zone target. So I think you could get a touchdown, maybe 2. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a huge game for Kittle. Obviously, agree with everything you said. The Rams are second worst in the league in points allowed to tight end from a fantasy perspective. From a smash card perspective, I think that's a great choice. I think there's also an opportunity to play Hall of Fame tight end. So you actually get 3x the total points scored by Kittle. So if he scores 1 touchdown, maybe even 2, and you multiply all his points in total by 3, I mean, that's a huge, huge boon for your team. It does cost $6K, but it is the cheapest of the Hall of Fame cards versus all the other skilled players for running backs and wide receivers. So definitely smashing Kittles. All right, tell me about Bowers. Why is he the start for you?
Well, look, I think I've been kicking off all this. Why don't you start with Bowers, and I'll add this 10.
Yeah, I mean, Bowers, he's just been unreal so far, right? Like if you told me he was going to be a top 3, top 2 tight end in fantasy, I don't know if everyone would believe that, but he is this far. He's been very, very consistent, and he hasn't even scored yet. He almost got 100 yards last game, but I love him. He's got a great matchup too. He's playing Carolina. I think people know that's not been a very difficult team to play thus far. Carolina is 3rd worst in points allowed to tight ends, so just right behind the Rams. And they've also given up 2 touchdowns already to tight ends thus far, most of the NFL. So Bowers could get on the scoreboard for the first time in his career versus Carolina. So I love that. I think Bowers is a great play. The only reason I'm not smashing him is because I think Kittle's going to have a slightly bigger game. How about you?
I think my reason for maybe just doing a start versus a smash is I think, as we've talked about some other games, a little bit of a risk here. It's possible, as scary as it sounds, like because we're not used to the Raiders doing anything good, but they could crush the Panthers. Like maybe the Panthers are better with Dalton, maybe not.
Slightly better, yeah.
28-3 at the half. The second half could be a heavy dose of Zamir White and Alexander Madison. Possible some of those points come on the defensive side of the ball, or even an interception deep in the red zone where then they run it in. So very close to Kittles, but tiebreaker is going to go to the game that, as much as I think that the Niners are going to have a get-right game, I think that game stays closer, whereas Carolina's just looked awful.
Yeah, they've looked really bad. And then lastly, I think because we can't play anyone else, we have to sit McBride, right? McBride has looked great as a tight end. He's one of the only 3 tight ends that looked good so far. But you have to sit someone. Detroit, they're like top 12 in yards allowed to tight ends, so not as bad as the Rams and Carolina this far. 6th in the league and fewest fantasy points to tight ends. So they've got a decent defense that they put up against tight ends. McBride is still going to have a solid game, I think. That's going to be a really fun game to watch, actually, Arizona and Detroit. But yeah, he's my sit, obviously, because he's not going to have the same game that Bowers and.
So to be clear, if I had to pick one of these tight ends to start every game the rest of the season, I would probably pick McBride. I think he's in a vacuum the best option. But given the fact that they're playing Detroit, who I think is by far the best defense, and aside from kind of early season noisy metrics, I just think they're the best defense, right? They may have not be perfect on tight end so far, but they're good. They were good last season, and I would just shy away from them. We also have seen 2 different Arizonas in 2 games, and I honestly don't know which Arizona is going to show up in game 3.
Yeah, tough to call. Let's play a little fun bonus game. You ready? All right. Just because Travis Kelce, we kind of mentioned him a little bit. He's everyone's favorite tight end for the past X amount of years. But rest of the season, who would you rather have, Kelce or Kittle?
Honestly, at this point, playing Kittle. And we joked a little bit about it on our last pod, which is that if I'd seen before I draft next year, I just need to look at every single player's haircut, because I took Kelce and Burrow sight unseen. And then I see Burrow come out looking like a blonde, Eminem from like the 90s. I remember I used to have my hair like that, and it was embarrassing. And then I see Kelce with, I don't even know, I'd like the Karen haircut, the male Karen haircut. If I had seen these, I would not have drafted either player. So I feel a little bit misled.
Okay, let's do lightning round. Kelce or Bowers?
Bowers.
Kelce or McBride?
McBride.
Okay. Kelce or Mark Andrews?
Kelce.
Okay, Kelce or...
That's where
the line?
Kind of
Okay, last one. Kelce or Kincaid?
Maybe I was being provocative.
Kelce.
Kelce, yeah. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Just interesting. It's interesting to see. I think we know who to be the top 3 tight ends the rest of the year, right? It's probably going to be Kittle, Bowers, and McBride.
Dang, Kelce or Ferguson?
If Ferguson didn't get hurt and was having the year like he just had last year, I would say Ferguson. But I don't know if Ferguson's going to be healthy for a couple weeks, even if he starts playing this week. So I'll still say Ferguson.
Is the honeymoon period over? You were like in love last week, and now it's sounds like it's still on the rocks.
So what happens when you tear MCL or?
Marilyn, do not tear your ACL. This poor woman. She's thinking, mother of your child. You got a great relationship, but you've just put it out there. If she tears her ACL,
Well, that's my wife, not a fantasy football player. So I don't know if you conflate the two, but that's just
you sounded nearly as close to Ferguson last week. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's wishful thinking on your part, but it's okay. You can keep your dreams to yourself. All right. That wraps up our episode. We were kind of dragging that one out because we wanted to talk about tight ends a little bit, which Chris loves to talk about and think about, loves to talk about tight ends. So with that, Chris, why don't you exit us out here and let people know how they can follow us along.
Awesome. Well, get our minds off tight ends for 1 second and subscribe on whatever podcast software you're listening to. Go to smashupsports.com and register to play today. We've got the free weekly tournaments, season-long leagues, and single player coming soon, all free to play. Also, you can go on social, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, at SmashUp Sports. You can find those links in the description, and we will see you next time.
All right. For us, we're out. Smash Bros out.
Friend you, buddy.
Friend you always.